are live. Yes, we are live. Ooh, the light. Be all right. Hello, peoples. Hello, hello, hello. We, as you can probably tell, this is probably our normal situation where I just work out and I am like cooling down for my workout. Oh man, look at the glare that's happening right now. The glare, boo, the glare. Wait, so I gotta stand this way for it to work? Do I gotta put the chair? Oh, okay. We'll just change it this way. Not a problem. Um, yeah. So we do this. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, that seems to be the normal thing. However, I want to make this a very quick video. When I say quick, maybe 15 minutes max to go through part two, because I realized I left you hanging on part one and I never talked about part two. So I need to be quick with this. Also, too, because we have stuff to do. We are packing, we are getting my life together. I don't know where we're moving to, but it's okay. That's how fun life is. I don't know where I'm going, but I only need about 15 minutes to cool down from this workout. Did cardio, lifting, all that good stuff. Hair video that will come another time. But we are here for part two of the ish they don't tell you in pro sports. And not saying that I would have known all these things. However, talking to some people after part one and those who have like reached out on the side and stated this applies to high school, especially if you're with a travel team. They travel a lot. Some even like the performing arts sector, the college sector, not just pro sports. So something to keep in mind. The glare is still happening. I see it. Dang it. I think the sun is because of the time of day. Dang it. Hold on. Let's see if we can change this. I don't know. Can we change it like this? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Cool. All right then. Because we're not trying to overcomplicate this. We just want to get this going. You can share this with other people. I like to share this with students or people who want to get into pro sports, or maybe they didn't get into the college setting yet. They want to. They're in the high school setting. They don't travel as much with the high school team. And they're like, oh, I want to do pro sports. And we've already talked in other videos. You can check those out. 1 or 2% of PTs, 1 or 2% of the athletic training sector, they end up in professional sports. So it's not common. However, not trying to discourage people from getting into pro sports and everything. I get it. But if that's your desire, it's your desire. But I do want to make sure like you have some like idea of what you might be getting yourself into. So check out part one if you have not already. This one, oh, thank you, Edward. I appreciate it. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, we are moving, so we're gonna figure that out. We are packing, but it's like I still have to work out, cook. Like that's gonna happen regardless. So, but part two, I'm gonna probably do maybe 6 because I realize it can kind of flow into another video that talks about like how to thrive in the professional setting. When I say professional setting, it could be college, it could even be high school, but especially, yeah, I would say especially performing arts, college, pro sports, where that athlete or that client is an adult. And I say adult, yeah, usually when you're in high school, you're not an adult yet. There you go. And so they're still getting to know themselves in a collegiate setting. You're still getting to know yourself as an athlete, as a person, I should say, understanding. And then some people who go from high school to college as an athlete or whatever your niche is, you may actually be changing roles. So for example, in your high school, you're a quarterback. You may go to college and you may actually be a cornerback, or you may play another role. You may play special teams. So basically, you can apply this in high school setting, but I think it's more so just thinking about like how to actually work with someone who is getting to know themselves. They like we already know personalities developed at a certain age, so that'll be a separate video about thriving. So look out for that. May not be right now because again we said we're packing. How to thrive in the professional collegiate setting. So now on to, we are 4 minutes in. Let's choppy chop chop. So now we're on to the ish they don't tell you in pro sports, part two. If we start talking, part one, we already talked about like you're going to be deliberate with your fitness, deliberate with your time management, spending time with family, yourself, like personal time, time management, being efficient, say understanding there is a travel schedule, at home schedule, practice schedule, game day schedule. And it's like, how do you align your personal goals, whether it's fitness, like being a caregiver or being a wife, a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband to your family, a father, a mother, like working on that. So now we, check out that video. Now we're talking about certain like things like, for example, the first thing I want to talk about, when you make it here to pro sports or college, it doesn't mean you stop networking. And I know that sounds easy to say, but like using LinkedIn to your advantage, using, if you use Instagram, if you use Twitter, and it's not just because then you're posting things. A lot of it's just like you connecting with people that maybe, and I'll speak from experience, they weren't listening, they weren't answering your messages. Like when you would on LinkedIn, oh, I love what you're doing. This is awesome. I want to be in this professional sports like you, X, Y, and Z. Is there anything, any feedback, any resources? I tell you, some will answer and some will not. And it because everyone's busy. Like, so I understand it from that standpoint, but just now when you have, I don't want to say made it, but now that you've maybe the goal was to get the collegiate setting, to get in professional sports, now you need to keep networking. And I don't want to say networking to get another job. Networking is to learn, because you may be on a team that they practice a certain way. Maybe they don't use modalities as much, or they're very passionate on certain things like MSK ultrasound. Certain things are utilizing the physician, or maybe the other way around, where it's like we lead the physician as a healthcare professional. We are colleagues with the physician. So it all depends on your setting, the understanding that will kind of understanding like what that culture of that team is. But you need to keep networking, because you can learn from another team to say, oh, how do you work? How do you assess the foot and ankle complex? Because we can say, oh, foot and ankle mortise, the mortise joint, and we have, the first ray, and you have, your 3 points, or just basic things, but it could go down. You can make it go down a rabbit hole, or you can something that can lead you to help you understand, like, why don't we look at arches? Why don't we start looking at like the shoe that they're wearing? Because a lot of players are going to be wearing shoes that, whether it was designed for them, whether they helped design it, whether they know what they designed besides like what it looks like, but the actual fabric that's being used, the materials that are being used. And I think the greatest thing is like when I went to New Balance just to visit with our staff, it was great just to see like how they take in the players' input and create the shoe to help meet their needs. And I thought that was so cool just to hear that. And more places are doing that. Obviously, that was just an example of me seeing firsthand, but understanding that I can now learn from that example, New Balance, like how they create the shoe, they show the lab, they show how they go on the treadmill and they do this, and they show how the athlete will give feedback and come to that facility and check out those things and have like a court or a field or a track, and they can actually utilize the sources there. So when you network, you can understand those things. You can be part of the conversation to like just enlighten you. So then you understand, like, say, for example, oh, I love basketball, which I do, love the NBA, but it doesn't mean it has to be only basketball related. It could be track related. It could be UFC. I was talking to somebody else. It could be dancing and Tai Chi, or it could be anything, and how they correlate with one another, because movement is movement, and understanding how the movement over here can actually help with the movement with like what your sport is, or if you work multi-sports and the collegiate setting, that could happen, high school, it happens. So networking, that's number one. Continue to network. So let's move on. I'm looking at my phone. Ooh, for those who are on my channel and for those who, maybe follow me on Instagram or whatever, LinkedIn, yes, I don't shy away to state that I am the first female, or black female as a physical therapist, athletic trainer in the NBA, but by all means, like I I'm not like a gatekeeper to say, oh, I'm here and cool, right? I'm not going to be in the NBA forever. Don't even know if I'm going back to the NBA. Like that's another thing. Like, so I think understanding when you get to the setting that you want to get into, under you may be the only one. That's literally my point where you may be the only female. You may be the only minority. You could be Native American, you could be African American or Afro Caribbean like I am. Any Hispanic, like you could just be a female or a male or identify however you identify, and you may be the first, and there may not be others that look like you in your setting. And understanding like you have to be comfortable with yourself first and don't seek the entity that you're working for or the environment that you're in to give you that comfort or that validation or that what's the word, or even the accommodation. I think in today's society is like, oh, like I'm different, like this is what I bring to the table, they need to have this and this and this and demanding that. I'm not saying everyone's like that, but um we see on social media a lot of, oh, they need to have these resources for female X, Y, and Z. I will speak from experience, and it has evolved and has grown around the league. And I'm speaking on the NBA, and I have heard in the NFL it's continued to grow as well, where you being a female, my first year, and even I'll say a little bit my last year, where it's like, oh, you had a female on your team. I didn't know. We don't have a dressing area for you. It's like, oh, okay. Thank you. But I remember my first year, it's like, okay, you would ask ahead of time, who do I need to talk to? Like, you make that happen because the person behind you, meaning like the following year, whether it's in the same team or another team, they could be working for another team. If they're female or yeah, so for example, I'll speak from my experience. They're a female and they need a place to change. It's not on the other side of the arena to get dressed, and then they got to make sure they tape up those ankles, do the treatment, because especially if it's G League or something, there's not many of you. There's maybe one medical. Now they have an assistant. Like at that time, I didn't have an assistant. And then you have your performance. So you tape the ankles, do your treatment. They flow into performance, flow into pregame court work. And then it's like you have pregame taping. You do the taping, and then you have maybe 5 minutes, before the national anthem that's about to hit. You got to get on the court. You do not want to be late. You don't want to look like you're rushing to the court. And I know from experience, a lot of times you look like you're rushing to the court. However, you want to get dressed because the sweaty clothes that you're wearing as you're moving these body parts, stretching, doing all this treatment stuff, you cannot wear that at the game, especially if you're going to be sitting on the bench. Like that's not the attire. You need to look professional. So you need to change. So sometimes you would end up in a bathroom, and it is what it is. Like that's what happens, especially if even if a room was made available to you and it's on the other side of the arena, and you know logistically that's not going to make sense. By the time I run down there, I'll be sweating, obviously, change it to my clothes, and then run onto the court. And say if it's a bathroom, you can't leave your stuff in the bathroom. If it's a room, hopefully you can leave it there, but you need to budget that time. So sometimes you have to use a restroom that could be where the other fans stay, that's happened before, where other fans use, I should say, and maybe it's the closest to maybe the locker room or training room that you're using to then the arena or where you walk out to get to the court. If you got to do that, you got to do that. It is what it is. And I think just being flexible is like, yeah, one of the things I know that'll lead into the next one. Being flexible is important. And it's not because like, oh, they're not making accommodations for me. No, some may, and some really probably didn't know you were on the team. And it is what it is. Like, I'm not condoning to say like there shouldn't be any type of accommodations, but we have to understand this is a male dominant sport, and we're trying to make a positive impact as, say, if you're a female coming to the space or a minority coming to the space, and that change will happen. And it may take time and understanding, like, you're not going to come in there and just like demanding like, oh, I need like a change of space. Like I'm a female. This is 2024. We need to have this, like, just understanding like, what you bring to the table, and with meekness, how that can, establish and take care of itself. Where, for example, say, for example, we're East Coast, you may only in your Western Conference, You go to the Eastern Conference, you may play that team only once there, and they play once coming. Obviously, if it's a preseason game, playoff game, different story. But if it's a Western Conference and you're in the Western Conference, you may play them twice there, right? For example. So say the first time you go there, there's not a restroom. And again, I know I'm speaking a lot on this example. If there's not a restroom, kindly go about thinking, who do you need to talk to, maybe on your side, right? On your team, and figure out who to make arrangements for next time you play that team. So you'd be surprised, like those small conversations done in a very respectful manner, it will change things. Where next time, I will never forget where like there was like a room that I didn't even know existed until the next time we played them, and it was like they had a coffee machine, they had towels, they had washcloths, they had soap, lotion. I was like, wow, like, and I'm not trying to be I'm literally like, I'm thinking about my first year 5 years ago, where it's like you got a bathroom stall, you need to figure that out. Where it's like you had a full room to share with another female or one or two more female staff. Obviously, we had more females travel, cool. And you had a space, you're just like, thank you so much. Like, and the way you just went about it, it was in a respectful way where it's like, it didn't make this whole ordeal. It was just kind of like, hey, who is there anyone I could talk with for next time? X, Y, and Z. They made it happen. And you can show that appreciation where it's like, now you know who our staff talked to for that staff. And you can like say, thank you. Like, please let them know, like, I really appreciate it. This went above and beyond. And that goes a long way. Cause like, you're thinking like, I'm a mere physical therapist, athletic trainer. And I understand I need to reach, work with these players, get on the court, be in time for the game. But that you'd be surprised some of those conversations end up to the GMs, that end up to the front office staff. And you're like, I don't even know that I was going to go there. And I am so appreciative that, like I was appreciative. It was a good conversation that made it to the front office of like, thank you. Like, I didn't expect the room to look like this, all decked out. Like, I thought it was the executive lounge at first. Like, thank you so much. So, yeah, so that's some of the things I will say, like understanding, like when you are the first female or first minority, whatever the case may be, just understand like you have to be flexible, yet advocate for yourself in a respectful manner, and understand like it will evolve with time, where there's things that may initially it may not be what you're expecting. But I have countless examples. I don't want to share details to not tell like the organization's business, but just know like they made a lot of accommodations for me. I'll speak for the 5 years I was with them, that I was very appreciative. I'm like, wow, like you didn't have to do that. And that's even from the front office on down to logistics. And I was like, the things that you don't even know about because they're not going to broadcast it, but you find out the details, like the sacrifice that was made. And you shouldn't expect anything just because you're in the NBA or professional sports. You're not expecting to say, oh, I demand, or I deserve X, Y, Z, just to see like the sacrifice that was taken to like someone giving up their office, for example, creating a locker room for women. Like, what? That is unheard of. Like, thank you. Like, so I appreciate that. And I know, talking to other people around the league, there is more change, positive change, great things that are happening, especially for those who are females. Cause I'm a female, so I'm speaking from experience. Those who are minorities, and just the things of like how there's like, DEI, could be personnel that wasn't originally on staff. Now they're on staff. There's people meeting up from all different walks of life, of just like how to make not just February, just Black History Month, the only time we talk about Black people. And obviously there's Hispanic Heritage Month, like bring some of those things. And I know like the NBA has created that initiative. And again, I'm speaking for the NBA. I'm being biased here. And just seeing how that has evolved and grown, like it's just been awesome. Obviously, there's way more things I could talk about, but we have to move on to our next thing. So, kind of touched a little bit on it. Now we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. Say, for example, you're on your resume says, I'm a physical therapist, athletic trainer, I'm residency trained, I'm fellowship trained. So you may get to your team. There could be G League, it could be minor league, it could be NBA, NFL, MLB. Like when I tell you the networking piece we talked about, that goes a long way, because then you start to understand what other teams, other entities are doing. You will find out, this next point, that these duties that you may do are not part of your job description. And it's not a bad thing. It's something that we talked about being flexible. So, for example, some people are coming from the clinic, some people are coming from private practice, coming from different spaces where, say, if you were a physical therapist, say you weren't even an athletic trainer, right? You're a physical therapist and you're like, tape ankles. Like, what are you talking about? You'd be surprised how some players may say, oh, you do my treatment. Can you tape my ankle? If you're in a great organization, that player does not know the difference of like, oh, that's the physical therapist, that's the athletic trainer. Um, don't go to that person to get taped X, Y, and Z. Obviously, be comfortable with who you are as a clinician. But I will never forget where this physical therapist was asked by a player to tape the ankle, and the player was like, "No, I like you got this." Like so encouraging, and it was awesome to see. I know it was very uncomfortable for that clinician, but the fact of like the player had so much faith, like, no, I know you know what you're doing. Tape my ankle, please. Like, it's just beautiful because it wasn't so role centric where it's like, no, you're a physical therapist. You can't ever learn how to tape an ankle. That's the athletic trainer's role. You do that, and that's what you do. And I've heard from other places, and not even just NBA, other places where it's like you could be duly credentialed, right? Duly credentialed for those who are not may not know. Duly credentialed, and I speak of, I mean like a physical therapist, athletic trainer. Say if you are duly credentialed and you're hired, say for example, as a director of rehab or hired as a physical therapist, and you have your athletic training skills, you'd be surprised how some teams will say, that's great. I really appreciate that you have your athletic training skills. Excuse me. That would be great to, if we ever need you as an athletic trainer, you'd be surprised how some will say, no, we don't want you taping ankles. We don't want you to do any athletic training duties. That is something that obviously your personal, as you as a person, you as a clinician, your career, your goals, you have to answer that. You have to deal with that yourself. So I can't tell you accept it or not accept it. That is your life. That's not what this channel is here for. That is not my ministry. What I want to talk about is like cleaning tables. Say if you're a physical therapist and you're used to like getting out of the clinic at like whatever time it is. Say, for example, outpatient or private practice, you're working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And, you get into professional sports, you get in the college setting, and it's like, yeah, I'm so excited, like X, Y, Z. And you start to find out, like, there are no set hours. So I know I talked about that before previous videos, but understand, like, duties that are part of your job description also include, you're used to like, oh, I don't wipe tables. Oh, I don't clean the floor. Or better yet, practice is going on, football practice, basketball practice, and everyone else has a towel, right? And you may notice like it could be an athletic trainer that has a towel over their shoulder, and you're the physical therapist. You're like, I know they not expect me to wipe the table. That is a bad thing. Like understanding like there's no for the most part, there is no like, okay, if you're going to help cover practice, there's no like, oh, I'm the physical therapist. I don't need to have a towel on my shoulder. So, for example, if a player needs a towel or there's like sweat on the floor, it doesn't matter if you're the physical therapist, if you're the athletic trainer, if you're a strength conditioning coach and you're helping watch practice, if something wet's on the floor, we are all going in there. We go wipe up that floor. Like, that's just how it is. Like, there's no like, oh, that's not in my job description. When I look at my job description, when I was hired here, it didn't say anything about wiping the floors or wiping tables. No, no, no. In athletics, that's how it goes. Like, and I can talk to multiple people, don't matter, it doesn't matter what the role is. And whatever sport, that's just what we do. So something I wanted to share, where I know we talked about like taping ankles, we talked about like wiping floors and stuff, just understanding that list can go on and on. There are going to be duties that are not listed on the role sheet. Like when you sign your contract, when you get your job description, it's not going to be listed. Offloading a bus. G League is a great example. Is like all hands on deck. Like if you have the least amount of personnel, especially minor league, all hands on deck. So it's 2:30 in the morning or wherever time it is. And even like at the NBA level, there's a lot of teams where, logistics staff can help do that. Equipment staff can help do that. But it's like, as a physical therapist, athletic trainer, medical staff, yeah, we all help take stuff off. Obviously, it depends on the team and how you guys do things to separate like training room equipment and all that stuff. Like, depends on what you guys do. But just understand, like, a lot of times it's still all hands on deck. Like, it's not part of your job description. However, it's a team. And so I have noticed when you are most helpful, where you're like, say if all help, whatever it is, you'd be surprised. Like, say we're getting, it's this is a funny example where we're getting on the elevator, we're coming down, we are going to head for a game, and bag pull, right? We're all taking our bags downstairs, and I say if you're on the elevator with a player, and the way most media goes, so say if you're on like any team page, right, and you're like looking at pictures, a lot of times they're like walking out of the hotel, like, or could be going up the plane stairs or something, right? Something like that. You'd be surprised where, like, we're not trying to mess with these players' pictures, but they may have like their bags on them, and it's like, it's not your job description to say, oh, take the player's bag so it doesn't, or their practice gear, right? That's on their loop, so it doesn't mess with their photo. You know how many times media gets pulled to the items are handed to media or medical or anything to say, a player just, so they're gonna take a picture because that picture is gonna go all over social media, right? And it's not saying you can't have a real shot of like the player holding their practice gear, but just understand, like, you can't be so gun ho on like, my job description doesn't say I'm supposed to be touching dirty clothes and dirty practice loops. You be surprised the more you help other staff in separate pillars, separate organizations, like, or like entities within your entity, how much they are willing to help you as well, and how integrated everything can be. So that's something that I'm gonna get off that topic because we are 26 minutes in. I think we have like a couple things left, and I want to make sure I touch on those so we're not here all day in this video. Okay, so shifting gears. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if I can tie these into two things. So the first thing I want to talk about, the next thing I want to talk about is, this is a good one. So some people who work in basketball at different levels, there's AAU, there's college, there's professional setting. And a lot of times they'll say like, oh, basketball, those basketball players have big personalities. Like, they're divas and da 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 da. And I'm like, kinda. Like, I think it just depends on the person. Like, in my experience, I'm just being honest. In my experience, I think it just depends on the person, because I've met divas in different sports. So I just think it depends on the person. But I know, like, that's been a little bit of the comments of like, how do you deal with professional players who I feel like they're been catered to all their life, and they had AAU, and their mom is there. And I'm like, well, that also can happen in soccer and travel ball and softball and stuff, like parents, So long story short, my point is, I think it's best to learn the personality of the player slash the person, their style of like, the style of how they speak and how they learn. And I'm not degrading the player by saying they're your kids, but I do know, talking with a lot of parents, where like, every child is different. Just like I'll say every player is different as a person, even as a player, as their style of play. And I say that because I know some people are very big on, I speak to everyone the same way because that's who I am. I'm genuine, da da da. I agree with you, be genuine, but I understand like my strong personality of like very energetic and like happy go lucky. For some people, it'd be like, yo, what you doing? Like, tone that down. So understanding like everyone's different, and understand like not everyone's a morning person. I know we know that, but I think just as a reminder, I think this is a reminder, because when you get into the setting and you're around these people 90% plus of the time, more than your family, probably spend more time with the staff and organization and players more than you are probably with your own self, just because of like the season can get long, it can get busy. Like, understanding personalities, where it's like someone may not be talkative, and it could be the morning, or because they didn't get enough sleep because of the season is long or the day was long. We're in the playoffs. Don't think about yourself. It's not all about you. Don't think about like, ooh, like, why are they acting like that? Like, understand, like, they may not be a morning person, or they may be tired. They may have other personal stuff going on. There could be things going on, and understand the personality is huge. Whether you believe in, and I'm not saying everybody has to pull out a test like an Enneagram or anything, but if you need to do that, I would say do that for yourself. Know who you are. I know some teams, they've used some teams may use Myers-Briggs, and I'm saying this from like talking to other people, and even like own experience. Like some teams, I think one was like baseball I interviewed for, like they do personality tests. Like there's different personality tests out there. There are pros and cons to all personality tests, so understand that. There are some that are very intricate, very detailed, some that may feel like they're accurate, but a lot of times it's to try to understand you as a person, you as a team member, a player of an entity. And I say player meaning like you as a clinician, as a player, you playing a role, how you work with others. Because if you're not a team player, like you are not going to do well. Like you are not going to do well. You may like, and no knock to people who don't do well in team settings, like, but just you have to know that about yourself. Maybe you need to work as a travel therapist. There's nothing wrong with that, or private practice, or you know, private clients, like, and doesn't mean if you do that, that doesn't mean that you don't work well with a team. Like there's time and a place for everything. But these personality exams, like whatever you believe in, I think they have some great stuff. I got a great resource from someone. They they're a physical therapist and a strength conditioning coach. And one of the books like I've been reading, I have like an hour and 16 minutes left, is, I know, like, I don't know if you guys can see that, Conscious Coaching. And I'm all about Audible, if you didn't know. And this is great. It's people think it's all about strength conditioning. It is not just strength conditioning. It is also about personality, understanding your player. Like I have notes galore on like, ooh, that makes sense. And you understand like this is a lot of things that are not new that you're hearing, but sometimes they're great reminders to you that to understand like if a player is that loud person, that doesn't mean you got to match their energy. You don't always got to match people's energy. You just kind of like observe, see how they're doing. You'd be surprised how a lot of players are observing you. They're trying to get an idea of like, who are you? Are you the person on day one, year one, as you are, you know, last day of the playoffs, you lost the playoffs, year 5, you'd be surprised. And they may have gotten traded to a different team and anything. Like players talk amongst themselves, but they're also observing you in the training room. They're observing you when it's 2:30 at night and you're on the bus with the AED book bag and you're getting on to the hotel. Is that the same person? Like they're watching you. So understanding, just be yourself, and you'd be surprised, you being yourself and treating people individually, not as like, oh, these are all my players, these are on my caseload. You'd be surprised as you understand how personalized you are. Because it's, again, if I'm a PT and I'm in a clinic, I can't treat all my patients the same because they don't have the same body part that needs to get worked on, for example. Same thing as personality. So I do want to stress that. I know I took a lot of time on that, but I feel strongest about in the professional setting and in collegiate setting. I'm finding out more and more it's not about your skill set as much. I know this sounds crazy. It's like a lot about how do you manage yourself, your emotional intelligence, how you manage being in a setting where there's different personalities, sometimes strong personalities, big personalities. There's different, just an array of things, right? And like NFL is something, MLB, all these professional settings, like there are a lot of personnel. And say, for example, we know NBA, you have like less than 20 players, and that can include practice players, all that stuff. So you think those are just the personalities you need to navigate. There's personalities on the staff that you need to navigate as well, and yourself. You need to know yourself, because if you don't know yourself like you think you do, this setting, the travel schedule, 82 plus games. Okay, let's add the plus, because if you make it to the playoffs in the second round, and if you keep going, there's the plus that's with it. Away from family, you are tired. You may get less than 4 hours of sleep sometimes. You may be, you may have your personal goals, things that you think you want to accomplish with, like, oh, I have like, for example, me, I have a fitness show. I want to do this fitness show. And it's like, oh man, we keep winning games. Like we keep winning. So it's like, okay, you need to put yourself on the back burner. When I want to say yourself, I don't mean like you as your health. I mean like your personal goals that you may have. You need to put the team's goals ahead and make sure you do not lose sight of yourself. Again, that's part 1 of the ish they don't tell you. So go check that, because I'm not going to speak too much. But we talked about personalities and of your team's culture, of your player, and then also in player preference, right? Some players, they do, when I tell you some players do not like tools, and when I say tools, like instrument assisted tools, some of them don't like, yeah, the metal, or it could be any type of material. Some of them, like, they just want your hands. They just want the feeling of your hands. And then they understand if you have to use other modalities like needles, or if you have to use cups and stuff like that. Understand your player and their preferences. That's like with the patient working in the clinic, like, we already know that. So now, last thing I do want to add, going to tie some things together. As we already talked about personality of players, personality of staff, you need to know your team's culture. Like we kind of talked about that, but the skill set of yourself and the skill set of your team and the leadership. I know I'm dropping a lot right now, and the leadership style of your like director, even GM. Like some teams, I will say, like, we had a great GM. I'm not gonna speak names, I'm not gonna say names, but that are very personable. They want to get to know you, they want to speak with you. You need to know that. And also, like, what is the best way for you to lead? Because you don't have to have a title to lead. And I know I don't want to get off on a tangent. There are books out there. I was recommended a book by my former director of, like, basically how to lead when you're not in charge, because you'd be surprised, like, you are a leader depending on who you are, not your title. Meaning what you bring to the table, your essence, like understanding like who you are, what you bring to the table. You may lead, and you may lead a certain way or lead in your space, and you can have a great voice without you saying a word. And I didn't really know all that. I know people have told me that throughout the years, but I'll say in my last 5 years, I've learned a lot where you didn't need a title. You didn't need a title or a role to say, oh, I'm this and I'm that. No, you didn't need that. You'd be surprised, like, how you carry yourself, and things will fall into place. And you need to understand that you have to know the leadership style that you bring, and how are you best led. That's another thing. How are you best led? Are you someone that likes feedback, doesn't like feedback as often? I know a lot of people, which I agree with, you want feedback probably off to the side. I've had experience, not talking about my recent job, but I'll never forget I know almost everyone has this experience, maybe a PT student or something. I know I was a PT student, and in front of the patient, and I was an athletic trainer student as well, and that happened in front of a client, in front of a player. I'm not gonna lie, I don't care who you are. No one likes that feeling. You want to feel respected. So obviously, we're not talking about respect. We know that's mutual, that needs to happen regardless. So we're talking about the styles of the leader and your environment. If this environment is, I'll tell you this, I know players have said, like, oh, you guys, like, and guys meaning like medical staff, you guys seem like you love each other, you like each other. When I say love, I meant like each other. You guys are cool to be around, and we'll joke with each other. And that's understanding your environment. Some environments, I heard, thank God I didn't have to experience that. I pray I never experienced that, where it's like everyone's in their silos, right? Everyone's like, oh, I work with this player because I work with the high-end clients, the high-end players, or the high-minute guys, or the starters only. And excuse me, I don't work with these players and X, Y, and Z. Understand that environment where it's like, do the medical staff talk with the performance staff, or performance science, or the assistant coaches? Say if your director's not around, and you may need to lead that space where you need to communicate with the head coach or front office or media, whatever that is, however you guys do that as a group. Just understanding, like, how do they like to receive information? And I think in the collegiate setting and the high school setting, whether you have an athletic director that you report to, I know in the high school setting, an athletic director are reported to. The collegiate setting, you have the coach as well, that maybe you interact a little bit more. If you have a physical therapist, you are the physical therapist, you may interact with other healthcare professionals. How do they like the information? Some people like a chart. Like the colors of green, yellow, red. Green means they're fully available. Yellow means with caution, or we need to modify some things. Red is like they are out of practice. They are not available to play. Do they need to know the body part? Do they need less information? They ask you for the information if they need it. Understand your personnel. And that's something I have learned more and more throughout the years. Great feedback for the past, especially the past 5 years. Know your audience. And I say know your audience, the same with presenting, but know who you're working with. Same thing with your medical staff. When I said the skill set earlier, the skill set. For example, someone may be really good with manual therapy, and the manual therapy can go off in anything. It could be belt mobilizations, joint mobs. It could be manipulation. Maybe there's certain joints they manipulate very well. Understand that. So, like for me, I'm decent. I'm not gonna say I'm an expert because I feel like I have to continue honing my skills, but I am decent when it comes to cervical manipulation, and that means the neck. I know there's some medical people on here, but like I know there are the physical therapists that we had there, like the thoracic spine, the lumbar, like there's just know your staff. And I think when you're comfortable as a clinician, as a person, you are not going to be so gun-ho on hiding what you are not strong at or weak at, or opportunities. Some people say opportunities for growth, and understanding where you can tap into that other clinician and ask, hey, on the side, can we go over the ankle taping? Can we go over, the SI joint and the pelvic, if you believe in pelvic alignment, and that's a whole nother ball game. If you believe in that, and if that's something that your culture, your work culture subscribes to. So you have to know what the philosophies are of your work environment, what they believe in, what they adhere to, what do you bring to the table to enhance it. And if there's some changes that can happen along the way to evolve, great. But understanding what you bring to the table, what everyone else's skill set, and that doesn't even matter in the professional setting, because you'd be surprised, and I said this a few minutes ago, you'd be surprised where you think, oh, you're a professional setting, or you're, this setting, you're the collegiate setting, oh, you guys are top 5 in ranking of in football, whatever, you guys should have like the latest modalities, and everyone's doing laser, and all the healthcare professionals, they should know, they should be like A+ when it comes to all their manual skills and how they evaluate. And you'd be surprised that's not always the case. And it's not to knock anyone, but it's like a lot of people who are successful, and I heard this over and over, and now like as you start interviewing for other places, you start talking to other people in other setting, other like realms, like not even just sports, but like high-end clients or performing arts. And I started to understand like it's not always about your skill set, because you can keep improving. If you are a lifetime learner, I am a lifelong learner. And there's a lot of people you meet in that, and they're the most successful people. But it's really those who are great people, great personalities, like they can adjust. And I'm not trying to say it to be a chameleon, because I know they can have a positive and a negative connotation, but more someone who can go with the flow, obviously stand for something, have values, don't just go with the wind, but you go with the flow, like be as water, okay? And they can meet the player or the client or the whoever it is where they are, understanding their skill set, what they bring to the table, know their limitations, know how they can improve, taking that time. Because when I think I said this in my previous video, if you decide to go into the professional setting, just know your time is going to be freaking limited. I almost said a bad word. That's bad. Your time is going to be limited. So you say, oh, I'm going to do this continuing education course. You may have to find an online version. Even if you had online stuff to your disposal, you had all the money that the league or the entity gave you, you have to budget that time, okay? There's not like when I work travel therapy and it's like, oh, I got off at 5 and the notes had to be done. Oh, wow, I got all this time now. Let's go work out. Let's go cook. Let's go make some videos. Let's go have fun with my husband. Let's go to dinner. Oh, I want to go see family this weekend. Let me drive over there. Let me fly. Bruh, I'm not saying there won't be an opportunity, but just know you got to be so strategic in your time and your time management to say, if I want to work, I want to learn more about the pelvis. If I want to work on this, for example, my thing was like, keep working on spinal manipulation. My thing is ultrasound. And I know like I let that go for a little bit and then I had to bring it on back. It's like, okay, I need to make the time. Okay, where are we based right now? Our home market is this city. Oh, where are we heading to? We have a game, like obviously we have multiple games in the NBA, but say if it's football, it's a little bit easier to say, oh, we have a game here. We're going to be stationed here for a week. We're going to be going here. Who are some clinicians? Goes back to my networking piece. Who are some clinicians that I know like they are really big on spinal manipulation, on musculoskeletal ultrasound or MSK ultrasound, dry needling, and I want to learn about what they bring to the table, or just movement. And they work a lot with ballet dancers, and they work with UFC fighters, and like all these different things. Like, okay, now that networking comes back into light, reach out, And biggest thing is trying to plan this out ahead of time. And also know, because you plan it doesn't mean it's gonna happen. So a lot of times, for example, you may have the time budgeted out, you had all intentions of going, and guess what? A player needs you. Unfortunately, that's what happens in this setting. You may say, I'm supposed to meet this person for dinner, or for lunch, or for coffee, and we're supposed to go over manipulation. That's where I talked about my previous video, or working out, or whatever it is you want to go check out a gym, check out like whatever it is, studio, clinic, whatever you want to do. That networking piece, or bettering yourself as a clinician or a person. Understanding you need to figure out what time works. As you start to go throughout the season, you understand not every season is the same, but as you go throughout the season, you'll start to understand like, oh, the players, and I'm not calling them children. Again, I'm calling them these players. They have a schedule. Okay. So understanding, depending if you're on the road, whatever that is, right? We talked about game schedule, off day, recovery day, travel day, away practice, whatever, right? Shoot around happens, for example. And when we get back from shoot around, there's gonna be a couple treatments. And again, I said this in my previous video, but we're gonna dive it a little bit deeper somewhere else. We have treatment. We're done with treatment. Most likely, it is nap time for the players. Okay, most of the players take a nap. And some staff, right? If you are not a napper, this is where this is like good for you, because now that might increase your chances. That's the time, that window, that might be an hour, might be 2 hours, whatever it is. You might need a budget. Can you be in a 15-minute radius or somewhere close to the hotel that you can get these things done? For me, that's working out. Say if it's to meet someone, or it's to work on like spinal manipulation, some things I need to work on. That's the window. Like, understand the window, understand your location, how that fits into play. If something were to pop up, you can get back to where you need to get to. So that planning is something that I did not do initially. And obviously, when I first couple years started, it was COVID, so you weren't allowed to go anywhere. But just understanding those are some of the things that you can keep working on yourself, because you can easily get into a routine and you start getting comfortable. And you start getting comfortable, that's when mistakes can happen. I know people say don't sweat the small stuff, but I saw where it's like the small stuff can turn into big stuff. That small stuff, that little sweat the small stuff, thing gonna drop of sweat into a cup. And don't sweat it. Over time, that cup is full. Okay. So understand the small stuff, the details. Details matter. So understanding those things is important. And I think we have gotten everything I think of. So again, leading up into our next video that we'll talk on. I don't know exactly when that video is going to be, because I am packing. Life is lifing, okay? And adulting is happening. I don't know where I'm moving to. We'll figure it out. It's going to be okay. But the next video I want to talk about, so stay tuned on this, is going to be like how I'm trying to figure out if I want to title it, how can you lose a player or client? But basically it's talking about like how can you succeed or fail in the professional setting. It could be the collegiate setting again. You could be performance arts. You can be the entertainment industry. I know pro sports, a lot of it is in the entertainment industry as well, just because of how things fall and going to play. It's going to talk a little bit of personality, about a little bit on that book that I just talked about, The Conscious Coaching. So I think that will be something to be on the lookout for. That they're going to have tips on that. I might have to break that up, because there's a lot of great insight of just like knowing your personality, your emotional intelligence, what you bring to the table, what you should not bring to the table. Learning how things can be used against you or not, like all that stuff into play. So I do have a question, and then let's see real quick. From Edward, any advice for a first year starting school in less than 2 weeks? Any quick advice? Okay, when we say starting school, do you mean like PT school, undergrad? I don't know if you can text back real quick in the chat so I can answer this question. I want to, because it hopefully can help somebody else too. Or starting PT school. Ooh, awesome. Okay, I do have other videos, but let's be quick on this one. I don't want to make this longer than an hour. I said I was going to make this quick, but as you can see, we're at the 48-minute mark, about to be 49. So great question. I do have other videos. Check those out too. But I want to answer this very quickly. Congrats, by the way, because that's something that I do. Don't take that lightly, because I think PT school is another great opportunity to understand that time management piece. That even though we were talking about professional sports in this video, in collegiate setting and stuff like that, you can apply it because time management is going to be like on point. Like people, we talked about like freshman 15 for undergrad, like this 15 could happen as well for PT school because there's a lot of reading that happens. And I think your background plays a role. So for me, it's a little bit different because I had an athletic training background. So my first semester in years a little bit easier. So I think your background depends. So you have to know, how do you learn? I am not a studier, and I say that like kind of where I'm more of a hands-on, like I have to play around with items to get an idea of what it how it looks, how it works. I have to visualize things. So while I'm in class, I am like glued into the screen. I'm drawing. I'm standing up. I'm doing some movement to get an idea of what we're talking about, how things are going. So understanding your learning style is going to be key, in my opinion. Hopefully, you understood that in undergrad, but I don't think everyone has gotten that previously, and I think you hone that in as you get into PT school, and just knowing like you're going to probably do some things that are going to be not your normal like routine, but you have to understand what is your makeup. So for example, group settings for studying can be good and sometimes can be bad, because if we don't have that one person in the group that can help us stay focused, we get off that tangent and time has spent, right? But I understood, like me studying on my own, reading the pages I have to read on the chapter, they understand I have to like take notes, or some people are very big on typing notes. Some people are speaking into their phone for dictation to create those notes. Whatever that is, understand that what's best for you, because the reading is going to happen. No matter how we're going to cut it, slice it, or whatever, it's going to happen. You're going to be reading chapters, and it's okay. And there's going to be things and terms that you may have not seen before. Even when I say I'm coming from athletic training school, I'm thinking like, oh, this is going to be easy, piece of cake. There are some terms and there's some things that I learned that I was like, oh, okay, I didn't learn that. That's good to know. Take notes, like, and challenge what I've already learned, or challenge some things that I thought I knew. And it's like, I need to understand this, or like, man, identify my weak spots. For me, it was like, oh, neuro, we need to work a little bit more on that neuro side. Or if you're usually how first year goes, you may start with anatomy, physiology. And I'm thinking, oh, I already did anatomy, physiology. I got this. Like, no, you go into depth. So even when it comes to the cadaver lab, and just understanding like not everyone's going to get it. Some people may have different levels to it. So don't compare yourself. I think that was the biggest piece. We had people drop out our first year of PT school, and understanding like, yeah, we had people crying. And that's normal. There's going to be, it's different. That's like you starting like undergrad for the first time, or middle school. It's an emotional time. It's going to be a lot different. And understanding like it may challenge you to your time. It's going to challenge you as a person. I know like I speak a lot of that, like my fitness journey. I know like fitness, like how does fitness correlate with PT school? Like it does in a way. Like you go for a fitness show and compete, and you will see how it will challenge you. Like you may think like you can't dig deeper to, make that time for, in this case, PT school, to study, to make time for family and make time for yourself, make time for sleep, make time, or you're going to be tired and you need to push through. Same thing with fitness, waking up 5 a.m, do this. And you're like, I don't want to do it, but you have goals. Same thing with PT school. I know for me, I had some second thoughts when I started, like when it started getting a little interesting, and I say interesting, like a little challenging for some of the concepts and some of the things. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, I just want to work sports. Like, why I got to learn this? And not until probably you start working or getting into your setting, you're like, dang, it actually all kind of correlates a little bit. So not taking everything, or basically not like funneling things in PT school. You're going to be drinking from a fire hose. So just understand like the things that you get in, just take notes, because keep those notes. You refer back to them when you're about to graduate, whenever you get into your setting that you want to work in X, Y, and Z. You'd be surprised some of the things you're like, man, we learned this by Dr. So-and-so. What was that again? Where are my notes? And you start to see how things pile together. But I know initially I was trying not to come in there, and it's very tempting to say, I only want to work in this setting, so let me only focus on whenever they talk about outpatient or orthopedics or sports medicine. And when they start talking about neuro or pediatrics, and like, no, thank you. And then you start getting into your other programs, like when you graduate and you start work, like, man, an 8-year-old with an ACL tear? What? And you start to understand, like, wow, like, okay, pediatrics was something I was supposed to pay attention in, like some of those things. So I will say, like, don't be hard on yourself, understanding like it's gonna challenge you, take it all in, take notes so you can refer back to. Um, Knowing what your limits are. So for example, I was traveling in to PT school every day. So I would budget like an hour and 15 minutes to get to class. If you're going to be living near campus, obviously that's a whole different ball game. So I understood like I may not be as sociable with some of my peers. I had to be very strategic on maybe the weekends or certain times of the day. But don't think that you have to make every single opportunity to hang out. That's something that I was big on, because I just knew like if I can't make it, I can't make it. But it doesn't make you less of a person. Like you don't have to fit in. And because sometimes if you're not very smart and efficient with your time, it may, if you don't manage it well, I should say, it can kind of bleed into your study time, your sleep time, your workout time, your time with family, your significant other, X, Y, and Z. So that was a lot of information. I think I spent 10 minutes answering that, but I hope it was helpful in some way or fashion. I will say, go and check the other videos that has some things about PT school, whatever you want to, and other things like while you're in PT school, all that stuff. I can make probably more videos if you want more advice, but let me know. But I am almost at the hour mark and I need to check out because we got stuff we got to do. Thank you for liking. Please share this to other people. Thank you for those who were there on this live as well. Hopefully it was helpful. I know we answered a couple questions and we added some things. We talked about what we're going to do next for the next video. So thank you again. And I hope you guys have a great week. We're all about like, let's be great, whatever that is, and whatever you guys are doing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you following. Thank you for traveling, Grace. Yes, I do appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I received that and amen. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much for that. But I really hope everybody has a great day and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And hopefully this next video won't be that long. We're going to do great. We're going to keep rolling on this. So anyway, God bless. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Share this with your friends, share this with others. So hopefully we can get more videos and we can start reaching more people. Okay, bye.